A warm welcome to all my dear students of Dhananjay Rao Gadge College of Commerce, Satara. I welcome you all to this online lecture of Business Regulatory Framework. This is Professor Nivedita Sakhwekar, and I'll be teaching you this unique and interesting subject of Business Regulatory Framework for the BCom third year students. I'll be taking all the four divisions, that is division A, B of English medium and division C, D for Marathi medium students. As it is rightly said by Albert Einstein, that life is like riding a bicycle. To keep yourself alive, you must keep moving. In these pandemic times as well, technology has made sure that we are still well connected with each other. Even though not personally, we are trying to pursue our education via online lectures. With the same attempt by DG College Satara, we have tried to make sure that all your education system is well connected and you are going ahead with your syllabus as well as all your entire curriculum for the BCom third year. Like I said, I'll be teaching you Business Regulatory Framework Paper 1 for this semester and Business Regulatory Framework Paper 2 for our next semester. Today's lecture, I have tried to design it to make sure that you are getting an understanding as to what all we will be studying in this paper. Today we will be focusing more upon the syllabus for this semester and what all you will be learning throughout this semester, we will have a brief idea about it. Now, like I said, as I'll be teaching for English medium students as well as for Marathi medium students, few pointers before we begin with our lecture today. I will be sharing two sets of videos, one for English medium students and another set of videos for Marathi medium students. We will be discussing our entire syllabus in English as well as in Marathi. So both the medium students need not worry with respect to the material for your syllabus from your knowledge point of view as well as from your exam point of view. Let us begin today with discussing the syllabus for paper 1. Now, this is one of the interesting subjects which you may not have come across in your first and your second year of BCom. Business Regulatory Framework basically goes on giving you an idea about the current legal system in India from your business and your commercial transactions point of view. The university and the college have framed this syllabus keeping in mind two important objectives. One is to create legal awareness amongst the students to make sure you are getting an idea about what are the laws in India which will be helpful for you in your career, as well as to provide you an understanding about the latest laws governing businesses and commercial transactions. The framework of this particular syllabus has been made to give you an understanding about the basic laws in India as well as certain special laws, for example, the Limited Liability Partnership Act and such other laws which we will be studying in our next semester as well. The entire semester has been framed to make sure you are getting an understanding about the laws as well as the latest updates in your field. For your this semester and for your this year altogether, the assessment will be done as per 70-30 pattern. That means 70 marks will be allocated for your written examination and 30 marks will be your internal evaluation. Your internal evaluation which I will be conducting will be comprising mostly of your unit test, it might be your vivas. As we have got time and online education is the need of the hour, we will also be indulging into certain researches, certain assignments, certain analysis of certain judgments, legislations and acts which I will be asking you to do for these 30 marks internal evaluation. Without wasting much of our time, let us go ahead and discuss the syllabus for this paper. The first unit of your syllabus comprises of one of the most basic and most important legislation of India, that is the Indian Contract Act 1872. The Indian Contract Act, though it was enacted by the Britishers, that means this is the legislation which is known as the pre-independence legislation, that was 1872 year. This act in the year 2020 also stands good, also stands valid, because the way in which it was framed in the year 1872, all the basic requirements were taken into consideration even in that times as well. And even in 2020, this act also is considered to be one of the most important legislation and one of the most basic legislation for all the commercial transactions. In this particular unit, we will be understanding what do you mean by law, what is legislation, what is Constitution of India. Under the Constitution of India, which are the three important pillars, that is the Parliament, the judiciary as well as the executive, how the entire judicial system in India works, and what are the business laws in India. To understand how the business laws have been enacted, we will go through its sources, that means the origin of these business laws. Then we will move on with the core Indian Contract Act 1872 to understand the definition of a contract, understand the definition of an agreement, and what are the essential elements of a contract under Section 10 of the Indian Contract Act. Thereafter, we will go through certain kinds of contracts to know which are the different types and how are they distinguishing from each other. The next topic which we will move on with is the basic concept of an offer and an acceptance. What do you mean by an offer? What is an acceptance? When two parties come together to enter into certain commercial business transactions, how that particular transaction takes a shape under the laws in India, that is something which we will be understanding under these two concepts. When an offer can be a valid offer, who can accept that offer, what are the prerequisites of valid acceptance, is something which we will discuss under this subtopic. The next important topic is something which is known as capacity of parties. Now, the capacity of parties under the Indian Contract Act does not talk about any economic or any financial capacity. Section 11 of the Indian Contract Act goes ahead to discuss certain important criteria with respect to who can enter into a contract. If a person who does not have eligibility to enter into a contract, what will be the repercussions of that? Who can enter into a contract under which valid circumstances? That is something which we will discuss under this subtopic. The next important subtopic is something known as consideration. Consideration in layman's language means something in return to something, that is quid pro quo. Whenever I want to enter into a contract, let's say I want to purchase a mobile phone from a shop. In return, I need to pay that person some amount of money. That is something which is known as consideration under the law. Any commercial transaction, any business transaction cannot be complete till the time both the parties commit to fulfill certain obligation from their end, and that exactly is what consideration. So we will understand what do you mean by legal consideration, what are the requisites for it, what are the important factors to make that consideration a valid consideration. The next important topic is something known as free consent and legality of object. For example, if I give 1 lakh rupees to one person and I tell him to go and murder another person, under the Indian legal system, and I am sure under all the legal systems throughout the world, such contract cannot be considered to be a valid contract. When I say valid contract, I mean to say that if I give him 1 lakh rupees and he runs off with that 1 lakh rupees, I cannot file a case against that person in the court of law. For a simple reason, I have entered into a contract to do something which is illegal. Murdering a person, killing a person is illegal under the Indian laws as well. So we will understand that what objects or what are the considerations which are considered to be legal, and for what all purposes can you enter into a contract. Likewise, something known as free consent is important to make a contract a valid contract. We will try and understand that when a party agrees to enter into a contract, his agreement should be free of will. That means his will should not be coerced. It should not be against his will. That is something which we will be learning in this subtopic. Another subtopic is void agreements. Void means something which cannot be enforced under laws. We will understand what are void agreements, what is valid contract, what are voidable agreements, and these terminologies which stand good under the Indian Contract Act. When we enter into a contract, the intention of the parties is to fulfill that contract. When we make commitment under a legal contract, intention of the party is to fulfill that commitment, perform that particular obligation. But under certain circumstances, performance of that contract becomes difficult, or the parties on their own do not want to go ahead and perform that contract. Under the Indian Contract Act, there are certain remedies for such concept which is known as breach of contract. In this subtopic, we will understand what do you mean by breach of contract, what are the remedies for breach of contract, when can I go to the courts and ask for compensation. So that is something which we will understand under this subtopic. So unit 1 will give you an understanding of basic law relating to the contracts in India, which is, like I said, the basis for any commercial transaction in India as well as throughout the world. The next unit comprises of special contracts. Now the special contracts come under the Indian Contract Act itself, but the fact that they have been made as a second unit or as a different category altogether is because of their features, which are somewhat different than an ordinary contract. An ordinary contract will have all the prerequisites under the Indian Contract Act, but these special contracts will have something in addition to an ordinary contract, and that is why the name special contracts has been given to them. Even though they come under the Indian Contract Act, there are certain essential features which they must be fulfilling along with the basic conditions under the Section 10. So such contracts, for example, indemnity and guarantee contracts. Now you may not have heard the word indemnity earlier, but I am sure you must have heard the word guarantee. Guarantee, for example, let's say I go and ask someone that what is the guarantee that you will perform this work for me. काय खात्री आहे, काय गॅरंटी आहे की तू माझ्यासाठी हे काम करशील, काय खात्री आहे, काय गॅरंटी आहे की तू हे माझं काम पूर्ण करशील. These are the terms or these are the wordings which we use on day-to-day basis. Under law as well, these terminologies are utilized for commercial transactions, they are used for business transactions, but they have got a bit more importance than what then we use in regular basis. We will understand what do you mean by indemnity and what is guarantee contract, which are the parties to these two contracts, and what are the distinguishing factors between a contract of indemnity and a contract of guarantee. Another special contract is known as contract of bailment and contract of pledge. Now, bailment is one such category again which we go on performing on day-to-day basis. To give you a small example, let's say मी उद्या एक नवीन पुस्तक विकत घेतलं आणि माझ्या मैत्रिणीला म्हणलं की अरे गं हे पुस्तक खूप छान आहे, आपल्या खूप उपयोगाचं आहे, आणि माझी मैत्रीण म्हणते की ठीक आहे, तू मला थोड्या दिवसांसाठी हे पुस्तक वाचायला देशील का. So I give my own book to my friend and I tell my friend that once you complete reading or once you finish reading that book, you will have to return that book back to me. In legal terminology, this transaction or this arrangement is considered to be bailment. So under the contract of bailment, when one person gives his own goods to another person with an expectation and with a contract that once that purpose is fulfilled or the time period is expired, the goods will be returned back to its original owner. So you may find these terminologies bit different, but these contracts are some contracts which we go on entering into on day-to-day basis. The only difference is that these contracts are different from commercial point of view, business point of view, and under legal obligations they have got different connotations, and they can be brought under the Indian Contract Act only under certain circumstances which we will study under this second unit. We will also understand their features and definitions along with the distinction between these two types of somewhat similar contracts. The third type of special contract is known as the contract of agency. You must have heard this word agent quite often. आपल्याकडे दलाल लोक असतात, ब्रोकर लोक असतात, रिअल एस्टेट एजंट असतात, हाऊस एजंट असतात, लँड एजंट्स असतात. These particular agents are people who are acting on your behalf to perform your work. You cannot be present everywhere every time to perform every work. So sometimes you need to appoint a person who will work on your behalf and complete that particular task. Such type of arrangement is known as agency, and that is something which we will be studying under the Indian Contract Act. We will try and understand when can an agency be created, what are its modes, and under what circumstances that agency can be terminated. The third unit under your syllabus is another important legislation, which is the Sale of Goods Act 1930. Again, if you see the year 1930, it is one year which was there before independence, thereby makes this legislation a pre-independence legislation. Like Indian Contract Act, even today this legislation stands good under the laws as well. This is somewhat similar to Indian Contract Act from the intention perspective. Under the Sale of Goods Act, we will be studying what do you mean by contract of sale of goods. Goods ह्याचा सिंपल मराठीमधला शब्द म्हणजे माल किंवा एखादी वस्तू. कुठल्या कारणास्तव वस्तू विकली जाते, what is the intention behind it, what are the necessities to make that contract a valid contract under Sale of Goods Act, we will be understanding that under the first subtopic. The second subtopic goes on talking about the contract of sale and agreement to sell. What is the difference between these two terminologies? What is the difference between these two concepts? What are the rights and duties of a seller and buyer under respective contract and agreement? We will be studying it under this subtopic. The third subtopic, again one of the most important topics under the Sale of Goods Act, is the conditions and warranties. You may not have heard the word conditions, but I am very sure you must have heard the word warranty. To give you a small example, tomorrow I go and purchase a refrigerator from a shop. The shopkeeper or the company will give me warranty on that refrigerator. Let's say 3 years warranty, 5 years warranty. So that is the same term which we use elsewhere in our day-to-day life. It comes under your Sale of Goods Act as well. We will understand what is the difference between conditions and warranties and how important these terms and conditions are under the contract of sale. The next subtopic talks about performance of contract of sale. Now understand, when two parties enter into a contract, they enter into a contract with an intention of fulfilling it. So what are the different modes of performing the contract, how a contract of sale can be performed or should be performed, when the goods should be delivered, how the goods should be delivered, how the payment should be made, all these terms and conditions we will be studying under the Sale of Goods Act. And the last subtopic is something known as unpaid seller and his rights. Under the Sale of Goods Act, when a seller sells his goods, the buyer in return as a consideration has to pay certain amount of money to the seller. If I have sold my refrigerator for 1000 rupees, for example, I should get that 1000 rupees in return. But if I am not getting that 1000 rupees in return, I become an unpaid seller under the Sale of Goods Act, which gives me certain rights. For example, I can go and file a case in the court of law, or I can retain my refrigerator till the time I don't get my money. So what are such rights and what are the repercussions of these rights? We will be studying it under the Sale of Goods Act. So that completes our third unit. The last unit, which is the fourth unit, talks about one of the latest legislation in India. Now you may think that 2008 is not a very latest year, but when you talk about legislations and acts आणि कायदे 2008 बघायला गेलं तर 2020 च्या मनानी 2020 च्या मनानी latest आहे, because this concept per se comes into picture after the Indian Partnership Act, which was enacted in the year 1932. The partnerships under 1932 legislation are even valid today. But due to its limitations about unlimited liability, restrictions upon capital, restrictions with respect to the profit and sharing businesses, many entrepreneurs did not find it very suitable and people turned towards company as a form of business organization. To boost the partnerships in India and to make sure that this mode of business or this form of business is also booming in India, the Limited Liability Partnership Act came into picture in the year 2008. Now, Limited Liability Partnership, commonly known as LLP, is a very good mix of company and Indian Partnership Act 1932. We will understand what are the salient features of LLP Act and LLP, so to say. We will understand how the limited liability partnership is incorporated, what are the legal formalities for it, what are the compliances which need to be fulfilled by the partners. The most important topic under this unit is limitation of liability of LLP and its partners. This being one of the key feature of limited liability partnership, we will understand exactly what do you mean by liability and how is it limited for its partners as well as for LLP. With this, we end all our 4 units from your syllabus. Like I said, we will be starting with our sessions from unit 1. I will be sharing 2 sets of my videos on my YouTube channel, which I will share on our Telegram group. One set will be for English medium students and another set will be for Marathi medium students. This comes under your syllabus form. Another important point which I want to discuss today is that your students, you should not be restricting yourself only to the syllabus which is there in your curriculum. Law is something which may be new for you in your curriculum, but it is something which affects our life on day-to-day basis as well. Maybe under certain circumstances at personal level, or maybe under certain circumstances at professional level once you start with your careers. I would request you all to not restrict your technology which is at your doorstep, at your hand, fingerstep. Not restrict it only to WhatsApp, Facebook or Instagram, but use this technology and use the internet for getting an idea about the latest laws or the latest versions which are going on in law. To give you a small example, you may have heard something known as succession or partition of property or something like that. Hindu Succession Act 2005 was something, though it is not connected with our syllabus, but Hindu Succession Act 2005 was something which was considered to be a stepping stone to the forward looking society in India. You must have heard that daughters and sons of a father now get equal right to the property. Due to certain loopholes in the law, there were certain setback to it. But recently, last week, Supreme Court of India gave a judgment wherein now, irrespective of whether the daughter is born before 2005, the father died before 2005 or not, irrespective of anything, considering today, the daughters and sons of a Hindu father under the Hindu undivided family get equal right under the property of the father. This is something which definitely may not make much of a difference in your career, but at your personal level, definitely it will make a lot of difference. So in India, we have got various courts which go on giving, for example, Supreme Court and High Courts of different states, which go on giving n number of judgments on everyday basis, which are turning steps, which are turning stones for your career as well as your personal life. So I would request you all to also stay connected with laws which are there in India and the recent judgments which are given by our courts in India. Having said that, from our next session, we will be starting with the first unit, that is the Indian Contract Act. I will request the students to please follow the timetable and also follow the sessions which are provided not only by me but by other professors of our college. And all the best for your this semester and your next semester, and we will stay connected via our channels. So I'll take a leave on that, and thank you so much. See you in our next session.